Hello everyone, this is Claudia, and starting with this video and mostly this summer I'll focus a lot on watercolor because I'm actually doing a study on watercolor. So I thought I will share to you something that I did and that I think is very easy, and I hand drawn these cornflowers and I watercolor them. I think like kind of cornflowers or um, this kind of summer flowers are the easiest ones to draw. And the first thing I did is I created kind of a border on my watercolor paper. My watercolor paper is 300 grams Canson. It's very thick and I don't need to actually tape it down anywhere. So that's why I use this paper. And the way I start is I start with the oval, which is the center of the flower, and then I draw in the petals. Um, First going to one side and then the other side. On a cornflower, you're not going to do petals on top because the cone of the flower always sits above it. So you actually only have to draw for half a flower. And I always start from the middle and I go up and down because that's the easiest way to make kind of a more of a nice symmetrical flower rather than something that doesn't really, I didn't want to end up with too many petals on one side or the other. So the what I noticed on cornflowers as well is that some of the petals are really thin and they are a bit swirly and facing different directions. So and they don't really touch the petals, and that is one important distinction with other flowers like hairbarass or from the same family is that the petals are very sparse and they don't touch. And that actually will help you when you do the watercolor because the color from the petals won't mix with each other because they are so far away apart. So that's kind of what I draw. Um, I've been practicing with them. Initially they weren't looking very good, but after like practicing 5 or 6 times they're just fine. So now I'm going to start coloring them, and the way I do this, I have my brush. It's quite a cheap brush actually, the wood starts to split, but I still like it. I wet the area where I want to put the color in, and this way I don't get rough edges. So if you don't wet the paper first, you will get rough edges, and you know the color will dry and will look a bit, let's say, yeah, rough edges. I don't know how to say it. And I start with one of the flowers with yellow, and the reason why I do the first wash with so much yellow is because I know it will dry out very light. Then, while the paper is still wet, I took some orange and I just dropped it um, at the end, at the beginning of the petal, and then that color will travel down the path of the water down, and then you can just blend it out just like you would do with any other like Copic marker or something. You always have to blend it out. What I did there was a little bit of a mistake because I dropped actually my brush and it did a little bit of blood. But the funny part about when you're working with yellow is that yellow doesn't really stain the paper and it's very easy to actually brush off with just clean water. I tried the same flower with blue, like ultramarine blue or cobalt blue, and once it's on the paper, it's very hard. It will always stain the paper, and I like to work with yellow because it's nicer. Now you might wonder, how did I get this kind of brownish color? I actually put purple on top of the uh, orange, and it's funny, when you do purple with orange you get really this cool brown, and I don't really have that cool brown on the palette. The brown that you see up is actually more of a red brown, so that's how I do my brown for this flower. And the trick for these ones is first wash, first color, always on wet paper and very light, and then you add more and more color, and you don't have to re-wet the paper because the paper will stay wet for quite some time. You can see here how when I drop the color in, because of the water that is still on the paper, everything just spreads around, and I just blend it down. I don't want any rough edges. So this is, I think, one of the easiest techniques that you can try with watercolor. Of course, if you just have flower stamps or whatever type of stamps you have, you can just stamp it. You don't have to draw it like me. But I actually don't have this kind of flowers in a stamp form, and for me, actually, it's quite easy to draw. And yeah, I sometimes do need practice. You can see now that I add more and more and more, and then I blend out. Always at the ends of a flower, the color is the lightest. I never go back there. And with my brush and a little bit of water, I always blend out the colors. And you can use the same color, the same thing, but with more concentrated color, or you can add more purple for the purple one. So this is kind of how it goes. Now, for the stem, I'm using, I think that's like sap green or very bright green, like apple kind of green. I don't actually know the colors of the watercolor by heart, and I'm not really interested in knowing them. Some people might learn them by heart. I'm just remember like this green is more like a apple green, and the other green is very strong. So that's how I take them. And the way I do it is I added the color to the side of the leaf, and then I came with just a clean brush and I blend it out. Then I add the shadow part, which is the darker green, and then I blend it out with the other one. And this is how you get the shadows in the leaves or the shadows in anything else. Of course, you can do different type of watercolor, which is like more loose watercolor and let it flow and with a lot of water, but I'm not yet ready to let it go. I'm not yet ready to be too loose. I still like control, and I like the cleanliness of this and then the transparency. And I think everybody should try a little bit these watercolors. My watercolors are just kind of classroom watercolors, they're very cheap. I also have other watercolors that are more expensive, but I tend to not use the expensive ones. Actually, I like this classroom kind of watercolors. So now I had the stamp set from Samuel's Stamp, and I thought I'm going to stamp a sentiment that says "Be happy," and I really wanted a gray color. I didn't want to stamp in black because that would contrast so much with the flowers. So I had this Lawn Fawn ink, and I was really looking for a stamping block now. That's why I'm actually not at my desk, and actually the stamping block was just in front of my face, but I couldn't see it. I don't know why. Anyway, I really was trying to stamp, and this is a dye ink, and I did a mistake here because I shouldn't have used a dye ink on watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is super absorbent, so it won't let the color of the dyeing actually absorbing into the paper slowly and even out. And for that matter, I needed to actually use a Dove blender pen with the ink from the ink pad and fill in the gaps, fill in the parts where the ink left white spots on the paper from where I stamped. This is how I fixed it. Maybe next time I think I will use my pigment. You should use just the pigment ink like the VersaFine, and I think I will just need to buy the gray one from that one. But in the end, I fixed it. It was okay, and all I have to do now is to die cut. I die cut with like I think a Lawn Fawn stitch rectangle, and this is like 1 inch smaller than the base of the card, which is 5.5 by 4.25. So it's a very simple card. I didn't do a background because I wanted really to have lots of white there, and Now that summer comes, and in summer there's so many flowers, much more than in springs, and I'm going to continue my kind of watercolor study, and I'm currently studying flowers. So I'm going to be drawing a lot of them, and I'm going to be coloring them. And of course, if you want to see kind of what I do from time to time, I don't always do a video, but I do post on my Facebook page and on like Pinterest, Instagram, and so on. So if you want to follow me there sometimes to see what watercolor studies I do, um, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, I might just do a video at the end of the week in which I show everything I worked on, but I won't actually show how I did it, because I don't have really the time to make videos of all. I would love to, but it takes too long. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope it gives you a bit of inspiration to try your own, and let me know how it goes.